All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're going deep on Rebel Wilson's Year of Health.
Ooh, I like that.
We've got magazine articles, interviews, even little bits from her memoir.
And some social media posts. Right.
Oh, yeah, can't forget those. So we're getting the whole picture, not just the headlines.
Exactly. And I think what might surprise people is that this goes way beyond just like a typical weight loss story. Rebel was really intentional about working on her mental and emotional health too.
Okay, so it's not just about the physical transformation then.
Not at all. It was a very holistic approach, which I think is really cool.
I love that. So many times we just get caught up in the before and after pictures. But it sounds like Rebel was really focused on a total lifestyle change. What was the spark for her?
Well, it seems like wanting to become a mom was a huge turning point for her.
Oh,
Rebel has PCOS, and her doctor basically told her straight up that losing weight could really increase her chances of having a baby.
oh wow. I mean, that's got to be a wake-up call, right? It suddenly makes it less about fitting into a certain size and more about, long-term health and starting a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something we can all relate to on some level. When you're driven by something bigger than yourself, it's easier to make those healthy choices stick.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's not about squeezing into those skinny jeans anymore. It's about feeling good and having energy to do the things I love.
Yeah.
So 2020 was Rebel's self-proclaimed Year of Health. What did she actually do during that year? Was it all like juice cleanses and crazy workouts?
And not even close. She really focused on sustainable changes, which I have to say I really admire about her approach. For instance, one thing she started doing was taking daily walks.
Ooh, I like that. Simple but effective.
And it wasn't just about burning calories either. Walking can boost your mood, give you more energy.
I can totally get behind that. It
Yeah.
feels way more realistic than, all those crazy fad diets and intense workout plans we see everywhere.
Exactly. And she didn't ignore the mental side of things either.
Oh,
How so? I was reading one of the articles and she talked about this practice called purge emotional writing, where she'd write out all her negative feelings instead of turning to food for comfort.
well, wait, hold on. I got to hear more about this. Purge emotional writing. I've never heard of that. What is it exactly?
Basically, you set a timer for 12 minutes or so and
Right.
just let all your thoughts and emotions flow onto the page. No judgment, no censoring, just get it all out.
Okay, so it's like a brain dump, but for feelings.
Kind of, yeah. And it can be really powerful, especially for breaking that cycle of emotional eating.
This is so fascinating.
Yeah.
I bet it could be helpful for anyone, not just someone trying to lose weight.
Oh, totally. It really speaks to that mind-body connection, how our mental and emotional health are so intertwined with our physical health.
It's all connected. Okay, we can't talk about Rebel's journey without talking about Ozempic. It's the elephant in the room, right? She's been very open about using it, and there's been a lot of talk about it. Can you give us a quick breakdown of what it is and how it works?
Sure. So Ozempic is actually a diabetes medication, but some people use it for weight loss.
I see.
Basically, it works by making you feel fuller for longer, so you naturally eat less.
Makes sense. But I've got to ask, do you think it's, responsible for celebrities to be talking openly about using a medication like this?
It's tough to say, honestly. There are definitely two sides to it.
Right, on one hand, it could help reduce the stigma around using these medications for people who really need them.
Right, exactly. But on the other hand,
It could put a lot of pressure on people to see it as this quick fix,
yeah,
without actually addressing the underlying lifestyle factors that are contributing to their weight.
absolutely. And you also have to think about access. Not everyone can afford these medications, so it raises issues of equity too.
All really important points. So we've talked about the external changes, but what about the internal ones? Rebel's been very open about her struggles with emotional eating and self-esteem. Those are such relatable things. I'm really curious to hear how she tackled those aspects during her year of health.
One thing that really stuck with me from her memoir was this idea she had of reparenting herself.
Reparenting. What do you mean by that?
She'd picture herself as a little girl and ask, would I feed this child a tub of ice cream?
Oh, wow. That's a powerful image.
It really is. And it helped her make healthier choices in the moment.
That is so interesting. And it emphasizes the importance of self-compassion. Recognizing those deeper emotional needs that might be driving those unhealthy behaviors.
Exactly. It's about breaking those negative patterns and building a more nurturing relationship with yourself.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about something else that really caught my attention. The fact that Rebel noticed people treating her differently after she lost weight.
Oh, yeah, that was really interesting.
It's a fascinating social observation, and I'd love to hear your take on it.
I think it speaks to some really deep-seated biases we have in our society, about weight and appearance.
You're right, like, we all sort of notice those subtle shifts in how people interact with someone based on how they look.
Yeah, and it's not always conscious either.
Right, like I remember Rebel talked about how people started holding doors for her more, or offering to help her with groceries, things she hadn't really experienced before.
Makes you think, huh?
Totally. Like, were those acts of kindness genuine, or were they influenced by her appearance?
It's definitely something to ponder. It raises all sorts of questions about how much emphasis we place on physical appearance as a society.
No kidding. But before we go down that rabbit hole too far, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the maintenance phase of Rebel's journey.
The maintenance phase.
Yeah, because this is where things get real for a lot of us, right? And Rebel's been so open about the fact that she's gained some weight back.
I think that's so refreshing, actually. It makes her journey feel real and relatable. Like, it's not just about achieving this, unattainable ideal and then staying there forever.
Exactly. It's like she's saying, hey, this is real life, and it's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we all tried to lose weight only to gain it back? It's so common.
And it's important to acknowledge that. It challenges this idea that weight loss is this linear, once-and-done process.
Right. It's a journey, and there will be ups and downs along the way. And it's okay to embrace that.
Absolutely. It's about finding what's sustainable for you over the long haul, not just chasing after some fleeting ideal.
I'm so inspired to embrace those healthy habits and cultivate a more positive relationship with myself. This deep dive has been so insightful so far. What else do you have in store for us?
As we've been talking, I've been thinking a lot about how Rebel's story kind of highlights that love-hate relationship we have with weight, especially as a society.
Yeah, for sure. It's like we're supposed to love our bodies no matter what, but then there's all this pressure to fit into this certain mold.
Totally. And it's not just in Hollywood either.
Right.
I mean, think about it. You see all those diet ads, weight loss programs, all these transformation stories. It's like being overweight is this terrible thing.
It's like you're not allowed to love yourself until after you lose the weight, which is so messed up.
Exactly. And it can be so damaging, especially for young people who are still figuring out their own body image and self-esteem. It can lead to, unhealthy comparisons and even eating disorders.
No kidding. It's a really delicate balance. So where does Rebel fit into all of this? Do you think, I don't know, her weight loss is adding to that pressure, or is she pushing back against it?
I think it's a bit of both, honestly. On the one hand, her transformation does kind of play into that idea that, weight loss equals happiness and success. And those before and after photos can be really triggering for some people.
That's true. I mean, they're everywhere. But do you think the fact that she's been so open about gaining some weight back maybe helps counter that a bit?
Yeah, possibly.
It definitely makes her experience feel more real and relatable, you know? It's not just about reaching this perfect ideal and staying there forever.
I think you're right. It challenges the whole before and after narrative. It's more like, hey, this is an ongoing journey.
Exactly. It's more like we're all in this together. So, okay, let's talk about sustainable weight management. What does that actually look like?
It's more about making those lifestyle changes that you can actually stick with, not the quick fixes.
So ditch the crash diets.
Yeah, and find ways to move your body that you enjoy.
Right, like maybe instead of forcing yourself to go to the gym, take a dance class or go for a hike with friends.
Love it. And meal prepping, that can be huge. It sets you up for success throughout the week.
Makes sense.
Mindful eating, that's another big one.
Oh, tell me more about that.
It's basically paying attention to your hunger cues, eating slowly, and really savoring your food.
Okay, so it's not just about what you eat, but how you eat.
Exactly. And if you're struggling with emotional eating, maybe consider therapy.
Therapy?
Yeah, it can help you identify those triggers and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
That's such a good point. We touched on this earlier, but I want to go back to how Rebel noticed people treating her differently after she lost weight.
Yeah, okay.
Do you think that's just a personal thing, or is it a bigger societal thing?
I think it definitely reflects a broader societal phenomenon. There's a whole field of research called weight bias that looks at how people who are overweight are often stereotyped and discriminated against.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've heard of that. Assuming someone's lazy or unhealthy just because of their size.
Exactly. And it can show up in a lot of ways, from those subtle little comments to more serious stuff like, discrimination in hiring or even healthcare.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
And it makes you think, when Rebel talked about people holding doors for her more often, Was it genuine kindness? Or was it because they suddenly saw her differently because of her weight loss?
It's almost like we have to unlearn these unconscious biases we have.
I think it starts with awareness, recognizing that these biases exist.
Totally. But it's important to remember that Rebel's experience is just one perspective.
Right. It's just one story.
Yeah.
We can't generalize from it and say that this is how everyone who loses weight will be treated.
And at the end of the day, it's about treating people with respect and kindness, regardless of their size.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's about valuing people for who they are, not for what they look like.
It's like what the body positivity movement is all about, right?
Yeah. Embracing diversity, challenging those narrow beauty standards, and promoting self-acceptance.
It's like saying, hey, we're all unique and beautiful in our own way.
I love that.
So where do you think Rebel's story leaves us in terms of understanding the body positivity movement?
Honestly, it's a little complicated.
How so?
Well, some people in the body positivity movement have actually praised Rebel for being open about her struggles with self-esteem and emotional eating. Because it shows that even people who have these incredible transformations can still have insecurities.
Right, it takes some of the pressure off.
But then there's also criticism because even though she's open about her struggles, her transformation got so much attention, and that's hard to ignore.
I see what you mean.
It kind of raises the question, can someone be body positive and still want to lose weight?
That's a good question, and a tricky one to answer. I imagine it depends on the person's motivations and how they navigate all those societal pressures.
I think so too. It's not a simple yes or no answer.
So Rebel's journey has definitely started some important conversations about body image, weight bias, and the body positivity movement. What are some key takeaways that our listeners can apply to their own lives?
Well, the thing that really stands out to me is Rebel's focus on making those gradual, sustainable changes, not the quick fixes.
Like those daily walks?
Yeah, exactly. And she didn't deprive herself either. She still allowed herself treats in moderation,
It's all about balance, right?
finding what works for you and what you can stick with.
And I think it's so important to understand those emotional eating patterns. It's not just about willpower, it's about recognizing those deeper needs that might be driving those behaviors.
You get it. And sometimes you might need help with that. Therapy can be a great resource for working through those issues.
It's like giving yourself permission to ask for help.
And remember, it's okay to not be perfect. Rebel has talked about her setbacks, gaining weight back.
It makes her story so relatable.
Right, it's normal. There will be ups and downs. It's about progress, not perfection.
Love that. It's about the journey. So I think we've covered a ton of ground today. From the practical stuff to those bigger societal issues, it's been fascinating to dive into Rebel Wilson's experience.
We've talked a lot about Rebel Wilson's journey, all the ups and downs, but I'm wondering, what does this all mean for our listeners? Why should they care?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've gone deep on Rebel's year of health, but how does it actually apply to someone listening who's maybe, struggling with their own weight or body image?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways for me is how Rebel focused on her overall well-being, not just the number on the scale.
Right. She wasn't just trying to get skinny. It was about, feeling better in every way, right?
Exactly. So instead of getting hung up on those before and after pictures, what if we all asked ourselves, what can I do today to improve my overall well-being?
I like that. It takes the pressure off,
Yeah.
What kind of small changes are we talking about here?
It could be anything, like going for a walk every day, not just for the exercise, but for how it makes you feel mentally.
Oh yeah, fresh air, sunshine, all that good stuff.
Or maybe it's about adding more veggies to your plate because they give you energy.
Simple things, but they can make a big difference, right?
Totally. Or maybe it's about addressing those deeper emotional patterns like we talked about earlier. Maybe you need to see a therapist or talk to a dietitian.
Like Rebel's purge emotional writing. Maybe our listeners could give that a try.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that it's okay to ask for help, We don't have to do everything alone.
I want to circle back to something we touched on before. Rebel's decision to use Ozempic. It's been a controversial topic, and I'm sure some of our listeners are curious about it. What would you say to someone who's thinking about using weight loss medications?
The most important thing is to talk to your doctor. They can help you figure out if it's the right choice for you, and they can talk to you about any potential risks.
It's not a magic solution, right?
Not at all. And even if you do decide to use medication, it's important to address those underlying emotional and psychological factors.
Right, because otherwise you might end up just yo-yoing, which can be Really discouraging.
It's about creating a healthy relationship with food and your body for the long haul.
So finding what works for you and what you can sustain.
Exactly. And embracing the journey wherever you are on it. That's one of the biggest things I've learned from Rebel's story.
I love that. So we've covered a lot today. From the practical tips to those bigger societal issues, it's been a really eye-opening deep dive into Rebel Wilson's experience and what it means for all of us.
And hopefully it's left you feeling inspired to take care of yourselves, both physically and mentally. Whether that's making small changes or seeking out support, remember you're not alone in this journey.
And if you want to learn more about anything we talked about today, there are tons of resources out there. You can research emotional eating, explore the mind-body connection, or even share your thoughts with us on social media.
We love hearing from you. So until next time, keep diving deep and keep taking care of yourselves.
That's a wrap on this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.